The video surfaced without warning. It was short, shaky, filmed at night near an airport outside Beijing, where the sound of departing aircraft never fully fades. A private vehicle, registered in the capital, idled in the darkness. Its headlights remained off. The engine stayed running. Whoever recorded it did not speak. They did not need to. According to the timestamp, it was well past midnight. What unsettled viewers was not what the video showed, but what it implied. A man was being transferred quietly, away from public view, under conditions that suggested urgency and secrecy. Online investigators would later argue that this was not a routine trip. It was an extraction. That man, many believe, was Yu Menglong. By the time the footage began circulating, Yu Menglong was already dead. Official explanations were brief and unsatisfying. No detailed timeline, no independent confirmation, no clear answer to the simplest question: where had he been in the days before his death? As fragments of information accumulated, one location surfaced again and again. Not a hospital, not a police facility, not a residence, an art museum. The Qihao Art Museum stood in Beijing's 798 district, a place associated with contemporary design and industrial renovation. On paper, it was a cultural space: concrete walls, angular corridors, minimalist light. But architecture carries intent, and intent leaves traces. Those who examined photographs of the building noticed something unsettling. The structure favored sharp geometry, narrow passageways, triangular intersections, and beneath it, an extended underground corridor with no windows, illuminated by harsh white light. It was not designed for comfort. Online speculation suggested that Yu Menglong had been held there for an extended period of time, not publicly, not officially, confined in a space never meant to be scrutinized, a place that could be explained away as anything else if questions were asked. The suspicion deepened when fans revisited his final appearances. In public events, he appeared diminished, headphones pressed unnaturally tight against his head, a strange, skin-colored patch near his ear, bruising along his neck, a subtle limp that became more noticeable the longer one watched. During live streams, his speech was hesitant, his expressions strained. He mentioned feeling unwell. He spoke of betrayal. At one point, he asked to be saved. The words were vague, almost careful, as if someone might be listening. Audio analysts later pointed out that the acoustics of these broadcasts did not resemble a private home. There was no echo, no ambient depth. The sound suggested a small enclosed space, possibly underground. In one reflection, visible on a plastic water bottle, viewers believed they saw the outline of a long corridor. Bright, sterile, endless. If Yu Menglong was imprisoned, it was not behind bars. It was within a system that required silence more than force. Soon after, cryptic farewell messages appeared online from those close to him. Then they vanished. Accounts were deleted. Comments erased. The narrative tightened. Media outlets shifted focus. Discussions were labeled sensitive. Uploads were removed within minutes. What remained was a pattern. A young man deteriorated in public. He disappeared in private. He was moved at night. And the place where he was last believed to be held was not a prison. That was what made it perfect. If this story resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel so that our future investigations can continue to illuminate the truths that often remain hidden behind the entertainment industry's brightest lights. Share this video across every platform where voices gather, because collective awareness is the only force capable of demanding accountability. Let us stand together, not in anger, but in clarity and compassion, to ensure that what happened to Yu Menglong is never repeated. Let us raise our voices so that silence can no longer swallow the struggles of those who give so much of themselves to the world. The first thing people noticed was not the rumors. It was his body. When Yu Menglong appeared at public events during the final weeks of his life, he no longer resembled the image that had made him recognizable. His posture had changed. His movements were restrained, cautious, as if each step required calculation. Observers replayed footage frame by frame, not searching for scandal, but for explanation. At a fan meeting, his headphones were pressed unnaturally tight against his head. They covered more than necessary, concealing the area where the ear meets the jaw. In that narrow space, viewers identified what appeared to be an artificial skin-colored patch. It did not match his complexion. It did not move naturally with his facial expressions. The placement raised immediate questions. It looked less like makeup and more like concealment. Then there were the bruises. Along his neck, faint discolorations surfaced under stage lighting. They were not theatrical. They were not symmetrical. They appeared partially faded, as if healing had begun, but not completed. On closer inspection, similar marks could be seen near his cheeks, poorly disguised by makeup that failed under high-definition cameras. During one appearance, his gait suggested pain. A slight but persistent limp indicated a possible injury to his leg. None of these details were definitive on their own. Together, they formed a pattern that could not be ignored. In a later variety show, his condition seemed worse. His eyes were red, swollen, as if sleep had become a luxury. His smile appeared forced, held in place through effort rather than emotion. Viewers remarked that his energy was depleted. He moved slowly. He reacted late. He seemed present, but detached. Behind the scenes, speculation intensified. Some believed he was under constant supervision. Others pointed to a man frequently seen at the edge of the stage, watching without expression. There was no confirmation of this role, no official acknowledgement, only repetition. The same figure, the same distance, the same posture. The most troubling evidence emerged not from public appearances, but from his live streams. During these broadcasts, Yu Menglong spoke directly to his audience, yet his words felt measured. At times, he struggled to speak at all. He mentioned feeling unwell. He hinted that something was wrong. He stated, carefully, that he believed he had been betrayed by someone close to him. He asked for help, not loudly, not explicitly, but clearly enough that those listening understood the weight behind the request. What followed unsettled viewers further. He mentioned a strange smell. He claimed that someone else could sense it too. He smiled while saying this, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Then he laughed, briefly, as if attempting to dismiss his own statement. The moment passed, but it lingered. Audio specialists later reviewed the recordings. They noted the absence of natural reverberation. The sound did not behave as it would in a residential space. There was no depth, no echo. The acoustics suggested a small enclosed environment, possibly underground, possibly a corridor. In one livestream, a plastic water bottle rested near the camera. In its curved surface, a faint reflection appeared. Viewers enlarged the image. What they believed they saw was a long, white-lit passageway. Straight, narrow, featureless. Not a living space, not a studio, a transitional area. A place meant to move through, not remain within. As these observations circulated, another realization took hold. Yu Menglong was still alive when these videos were made. He was still speaking, still appearing, still complying. But his physical deterioration suggested prolonged strain. Not sudden illness, not exhaustion from work. Something sustained, something controlled. If he had been imprisoned, it was not with chains or locked doors. It was through isolation, surveillance, and fear. His behavior began to make sense. The careful language, the pauses, the forced calm, the inability to speak freely. He did not behave like a man unaware of danger. He behaved like someone who understood it completely. And yet, he continued to appear on camera. Not because he wanted to, because someone required it. The building was never meant to attract attention. On the surface, the Qihao Art Museum appeared consistent with its surroundings. Industrial remnants repurposed into cultural space. Concrete surfaces left deliberately exposed. Minimal signage, clean lines. It fit comfortably within the aesthetic language of the 798 Art District, a place where function and symbolism often blurred. But architecture is honest in ways people are not. Those who studied the museum's layout noticed an unusual emphasis on geometry, sharp angles, narrow intersections, triangular corridors that converged and collapsed inward. The design did not invite wandering. It directed movement, forward, downward, away from exits. Beneath the main structure lay an extended underground passageway. Photographs shared online revealed a long corridor illuminated by uniform white light. There were no windows, no visible points of reference. The walls were bare, the floor polished to a reflective sheen that offered no warmth, only glare. It resembled neither a gallery nor a storage space. It felt transitional, yet unending, as if designed to disorient anyone who remained there too long. Former industrial blueprints suggested that this subterranean level once served as a materials warehouse. After renovation, it was sealed off, rebranded, absorbed into the museum's conceptual identity. Public access was restricted. Oversight minimal. For those seeking a place to hide someone without declaring confinement, it was ideal. As speculation grew, attention returned to Yu Menglong's live streams. Viewers began comparing backgrounds across different broadcasts. Despite occurring weeks apart, the setting appeared unchanged. Plain walls, neutral tones, no personal objects, no domestic clutter. It did not resemble a hotel room. It did not resemble a home. The space lacked individuality. In one broadcast, Yu Menglong read from a poem. His voice faltered at the beginning. He mentioned weak signal strength, repeating the phrase more than once. The explanation felt unnecessary, almost rehearsed. He smiled, apologized, and continued, though his breathing was uneven. The acoustics told a different story. Audio analysts noted that the sound behaved as if trapped. There was no ambient decay, no spatial expansion. His voice did not travel, it stopped abruptly, absorbed by close surfaces. The environment appeared small, enclosed, and rigid. A corridor, a basement, a room without soft boundaries. In another broadcast, a plastic water bottle sat near the camera. At first glance, it was unremarkable, but when viewers magnified the reflection along its curved surface, they believed they saw something familiar. A stretch of white light, a straight line receding into darkness, walls without features, a ceiling too low to inspire comfort. The resemblance to the museum's underground corridor was difficult to dismiss. What disturbed people most was not the possibility that Yu Menglong was being held there. It was the implication that he was being made visible while confined. The live streams were not private communications. They were broadcasts, performances, proof of compliance. If he was being monitored, the camera served a dual purpose. It reassured the outside world that he was present, and it reassured those controlling him that he remained obedient. The space itself reinforced this dynamic. A basement removes context. Time becomes abstract. Day and night lose distinction. Without windows, the body begins to rely on artificial cues. Light turns harsh. Silence grows oppressive. The mind narrows. Resistance becomes exhausting. Under such conditions, speech changes. Movement slows. The desire to explain gives way to the need to survive. Yu Menglong did not speak as a man preparing to escape. He spoke as someone negotiating limits, testing how much could be said without consequence, measuring each word. In that environment, the absence of visible restraints was irrelevant. Control did not require chains. It required isolation, observation, and the understanding that nowhere else existed. The moment the narrative began to fracture was not marked by evidence. It was marked by silence. Shortly after Yu Menglong's final appearances, a series of cryptic messages appeared on social media. They were brief, vague, emotionally restrained, the kind of language that invites interpretation without confirming intent. The author was Zhang Qingcheng, someone believed to be close to Yu Menglong and familiar with the internal mechanics of the industry. One phrase stood out: the last farewell. It was not an accusation. It was not an explanation. It was a conclusion offered without context. Within hours, the post was deleted. Then another appeared, and another. Each one referenced time, youth, permanence, loss. Each one disappeared just as quickly. Soon after, Zhang Qingcheng's entire account vanished. In environments where information is tightly managed, disappearance often speaks louder than denial. The absence of clarification created a vacuum, and into that vacuum flowed speculation. Some believed Zhang Qingcheng was expressing guilt. Others believed the messages were a warning, a signal directed at those who understood what had happened, rather than those watching from the outside. The theory of a scapegoat emerged. Within closed systems, responsibility rarely settles where it belongs. It is redirected, reshaped, reassigned. Individuals become buffers, sacrificial layers placed between the core of power and the consequences of exposure. If Yu Menglong was the victim, then Zhang Qingcheng, some argued, was being positioned as the liability. The system, it appeared, was reorganizing itself. Attention soon shifted to Mango Media. Once regarded as an untouchable entity within the entertainment industry, the company found itself under unprecedented scrutiny. Online criticism intensified. Films associated with its leadership faced coordinated boycotts. Box office numbers collapsed. Reports surfaced of forced group screenings, of attendance artificially inflated, of so-called ghost showings designed to fabricate success where none existed. Each allegation was denied. Each discussion labeled misinformation. Legal threats followed. Warnings were issued, not to clarify, but to intimidate. Yet the pressure did not ease. Market analysts noted a sharp decline in valuation within weeks. Investors withdrew. Projects stalled. Names once promoted aggressively were quietly removed from registries. On search platforms, warning labels appeared beside profiles previously celebrated. The system was bleeding credibility. What made the situation more unstable was the visible inconsistency in response. Certain platforms were instructed to suppress content related to Yu Menglong. Others were encouraged to amplify engagement on the same topic. Directives conflicted. Enforcement faltered. The illusion of unified control fractured under the weight of competing interests. As a result, fragments of information continued to surface. Rumors circulated of internal power struggles, of factions leveraging the incident to undermine rivals, of protected individuals whose connections ensured immunity, of evidence recovered and then buried, of items found at key locations that were never formally acknowledged. Through it all, Yu Menglong remained absent. No independent investigation was announced. No transparent findings released. His name persisted only through repetition, carried by public memory rather than official record. The more the system attempted to move on, the more the unresolved nature of his death refused to recede. What had begun as the confinement of one individual had escalated into something larger. The machinery that isolated him was now exposed, if only partially, and in exposing it, the system revealed a fundamental truth. It did not simply silence those who resisted. It tested the boundaries of how far silence could be enforced. Yu Menglong's death was not treated as a mistake. It was treated as a variable, measured, contained, observed, and the response that followed was not about justice. It was about control. There is a phrase often repeated in closed systems of power, not spoken publicly, not written down, understood. Some people are protected. Others are replaceable. Yu Menglong belonged to the second group. In the weeks following his death, narratives shifted quickly. Attention moved elsewhere. New controversies emerged. New faces filled the spaces he once occupied. To the machinery of entertainment, continuity mattered more than truth. Silence was not a failure. It was a function. Yet something lingered. Those who revisited the case noticed how consistently the same patterns appeared. A young individual rising too quickly, a refusal to comply with unspoken rules, the sudden narrowing of options, isolation disguised as opportunity, control framed as protection, and finally, removal. Not dramatic, not public, administrative. What disturbed observers most was not the brutality of the outcome, but the efficiency. Yu Menglong did not vanish into chaos. He was processed, contained, managed. His resistance, if it existed, was absorbed quietly, leaving behind no official rupture. This is how systems survive. They do not rely on constant violence. They rely on predictability, on the understanding that consequences are unevenly distributed, on the certainty that those without lineage, leverage, or institutional backing will absorb the cost. In this context, the notion of justice becomes abstract. There was no courtroom reckoning, no transparent inquiry, no conclusive report. Instead, there was karma, invoked repeatedly by those who believed that balance would eventually be restored. A moral accounting deferred to time, because legal accounting was inaccessible. The idea is comforting, but it is also dangerous. Karma requires memory, and memory requires repetition. What kept Yu Menglong's story alive was not evidence, but refusal. The refusal of the public to forget. The refusal of observers to accept the official absence of explanation. The refusal to allow a human life to be reduced to a risk variable in someone else's calculation. This refusal did not dismantle the system, but it disrupted its rhythm. International attention complicated containment. Conflicting directives exposed internal fractures. Platforms failed to coordinate suppression. Each inconsistency allowed fragments of the story to persist, not enough to prove, enough to haunt. Some describe the entertainment industry as a circle of demons, a closed loop where power feeds on compliance, and those who resist are consumed to reinforce the boundary. The metaphor resonated not because it was mystical, but because it was structural. Circles do not need cruelty to function. They need obedience. Yu Menglong, according to those who believed they understood his final intentions, wanted out. He did not seek exposure. He sought escape. The evidence he allegedly gathered, the unease he expressed, the fear he hinted at, all pointed toward a single desire: to leave the circle without being broken by it. He did not succeed, but his failure revealed something essential. Systems like this endure because they expect silence. They do not anticipate scrutiny from those with nothing to gain. They do not plan for persistence driven by moral discomfort rather than political ambition. This is why the case remains unresolved, not because answers are impossible, but because resolution would require admission, and admission would disrupt the balance that keeps the circle intact. So the story remains open, not as a scandal, not as a conspiracy, but as a record of how power behaves when it believes no one is watching. If this account unsettles you, it is not because it is exaggerated. It is because it describes a mechanism that continues to operate, quietly, efficiently, and always in plain sight.